Okay, so I'm muted. So good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for inviting me. I'm going to share my, so let me know if you can see my presentation. Okay, I'm putting in a slide mode. Hope you are able. So, it's my privilege to participate in this meeting to talk about how do we make epilepsy a health priority in Africa. And I don't need to share these facts and figures with the audience because this is why you are all here today, because epilepsy is a major disease burden in Africa. If you look at the number of people who have epilepsy, it's very high living in Africa. Looking at the graph on the right-hand side, sorry that the graph is very small, but if you look at the red and the yellow colors, that shows these are the countries with high burden, and many countries in Africa, we see high burden. Now, countries where the color is blue, it doesn't mean that it is not high burden. Very often it is also that we don't have information available across many parts of the countries. If we are all aware of the global burden of disease data, which is used to compare across different conditions. Only second to stroke for the most disability adjusted life years burden in southern sub-Saharan Africa. A disease with a high burden, but many people with epilepsy do not receive treatment, and the treatment gap in epilepsy in low-income countries is around 75%, and it can be all higher than 75% in many parts of Africa. The epilepsy prioritization is not only because many people are impacted by it, it is also because it is associated with poor health outcomes. For example, the risk of premature death. Epilepsy is also associated with comorbidities such as intellectual disability is seen in around 25%. Some of the epilepsy we know is secondary to stroke or traumatic brain injury, and then psychiatric comorbidities such as depression. So all of this is an important rationale why epilepsy should be prioritized on the health agenda. Now, why epilepsy should also be prioritized is also in certain specific groups and women and children. I think it's extremely important. And some of these rationale I have provided earlier. There is additional stigma and discrimination. For example, 1 in 3 children are excluded from education and social life. The fact that epilepsy is preventable and much of this burden due to central nervous system infection, trauma, and perinatal events, it requires that we need to work on these preventable actions. And then also this means that we need to work in collaboration with many of the other departments or people who are working in this area. So for example, the maternal child health colleagues, people working in infectious diseases, such as meningitis, cerebral malaria. So any action that, if we are thinking about the actions that will decrease the burden due to epilepsy, this collaborative approach is very important. In pregnant women with treatment with anti-epileptic drugs, I think these are, again, we need to know that many of them do not receive the treatments, but then there are also issues of side effects due to medications. So quite a bit of work needs to be done in the area of these specific age groups. At one point that we are making is that epilepsy is associated with high burden. The second point is that this high burden is associated with less resources in this region. So for example, if you look at the graph on this figure, in Africa, the number of neurologists is 0.04 per 100,000, like 4 per million. It's around 6 per 100,000 in Europe. So there's a large differential in terms of the specialists available. We know that the medicines are effective, cost effective. 70% of patients with epilepsy can be seizure free, but the availability is less than 50% in many African facilities. There is also non-inclusion of anti-epileptic medications in the reimbursement packages, and this leads to high financial burden due to out-of-pocket costs. At one point are the supply side barriers, on the other side are the demand side, and these are related to community attitudes and health-seeking behavior. The patient's belief and stigma, it may take different forms. The discrimination, and we already talked about discrimination in education, violation of human rights. There are certain health-seeking behaviors that are associated with the expense that I already talked, but also sometimes the health facility is not available. And then sometimes that the traditional and faith healers may be the first call for treating epilepsy. And all of these things are important because they help us in deciding what should be the strategy as we think about response at national level, at subnational level. Moving on, at a global level and also at regional level, there have been lots of actions that have been undertaken. You are all aware of the work and the partnership between WHO and International League Against Epilepsy and International Bureau for Epilepsy through the Global Campaign Against Epilepsy. Awareness and advocacy through regional declarations, regional reports, information on data, and also other actions such as the PAHO, which is in the Americas regional strategy and plan on action. Many actions have been undertaken. In 2015, there was a World Health Assembly resolution on the global burden of epilepsy. So it's not that the efforts have not been made to prioritize it. What has not happened is the conversion of these advocacy and awareness moments into action at ground level. We are still struggling with the high treatment gap. Access to medication is still a problem. Workforce capacity building of primary healthcare is still a problem. Stigma is still a problem. So what it means is that we require a paradigm shift, and I'll come to that a little later during my presentation on how this can happen. So we have tried to think in terms of scaling up epilepsy actions across various parts of the world. And the message that I want to convey is that what it requires is that we need to have people with epilepsy and their families at the center of any approach that we talk about. The Ministry of Health has to prioritize epilepsy within the primary healthcare system. If we only rely on neurologists to provide the care, it will not happen. The capacity building has to happen of all the primary healthcare providers. And that's not, when I say primary healthcare providers, it's not only doctors, because even the number of primary care doctors is limited. It's nurses, midwives, community health workers, clinical officers, psychiatric assistants, you name it, we have to involve everybody. This has to be complemented with awareness raising activities in communities, and this has to be complemented with supply, ensuring adequate supply of anti-epileptic medications, and together with good monitoring and evaluation activity. And we need all of this to come together. So we can't have just one activity and to see that the epilepsy treatment gap can be reduced. There are various tools available, and I'm not going to go into the details. You can find that information on WHO's website. Many of you are aware of Mental Health Gap Action Program and the epilepsy module that is included. It is also available as an app. It has been used for training across multiple countries. In many countries in Africa, epilepsy is part of the mental health department, and having an integrated or a standalone approach through mental health or NCDs is one way of action. There are certain activities that have been carried out to demonstrate that the model that I talked about earlier works. I give an example in Ghana, where having that kind of an integrated model, we were able to enhance coverage from 15 to 38%. And it was in 5 regions in 10 districts and 55 hospitals and clinics. But I think what it shows is that this can happen and this can be scaled up across the country. But what it requires is political will. Similar experience has been done and carried out in Mozambique. The country has also developed a national epilepsy plan. I think sustainability requires the political will, and that's what we need to work on as we think about the implementation of the new resolution on the global actions on epilepsy and other neurological disorders. There are lots of research activities that are happening, and I'm not going to go through all. This is, for example, as we look at the implementation of epilepsy programs, the issues are more related to how things should be delivered, not about what interventions are we talking about, it's the how. And that's where the implementation science comes in play. There are also issues related to prevention of epilepsy, and I have mentioned them earlier. Issues that are related to societal change. So this is an example of a implementation research project in Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania. The message that I would like to add here is that whenever we think about research as a vehicle for action, this requires that we involve and work together with the policymakers, even in such research activities. ILE, IB, and WHO came together to publish this first global report on epilepsy in last year. And there were 6 key messages about promoting epilepsy as a public health priority, improving stigma, investing in health and social care systems to improve accessibility to epilepsy care, enhancing access to cost-effective anti-seizure medications globally, preventing epilepsies, and increasing the priority of epilepsy in research agendas. Implementation of these messages at global, national, regional levels require that we build up partnerships, we build up collaborations. And this is the collaboration between civil society and policymakers. This is the collaboration between people with epilepsy and the people who are sitting in ministries of health. This is the collaboration of mental health, neurology, NCDs, maternal child health. And so there is a multiple level of collaborations that are required to see that we are able to translate these recommendations into actions. Some of this we will, from WHO side, will be doing as part of our integrated approach to brain health. This is part of the new unit that has been established to taking this multidisciplinary approach across a continuum of care pathway from promotion to rehabilitation. And I look forward to working closely with all of you as we work on this integrated approach. And this will be translated into the Global Action Plan that the World Health Assembly, and meaning by all the member states, have asked WHO to develop. This 10-year intersectoral Global Action Plan will be developed in partnership with all stakeholders, and all of you who are participating in this meeting, all of you who are members of IBE and other societies are important stakeholders, and we look forward to getting your views and inputs as we develop this action plan, because this action plan is for you and we want to develop it with you. Nothing in this action plan will be what you don't want. This integrated approach will look in the action plan, will look into some of the important areas. Some of that are related to leadership and governance. So how does our policies and laws respect and promote human rights? How do we ensure that the budgets are allocated for these disorders? And how do we have the multi-sectoral linkages established? Treatments are extremely important, including both pharmacological, the drugs, as well as other technologies such as assistive technologies. And in this era of COVID-19, telemedicine has come to play a big role. Mobile health has come to play a big role. What we have established as a mechanism during COVID-19, we would like to build it up and take it forward. Capacity building of non-specialist workforce is extremely important. And this also requires building up some kind of collaborations with stakeholders that we normally not engage with, such as traditional healers. And these are extremely important if we are thinking about a comprehensive care model for epilepsy. I cannot say, I can say a lot about stigma and discrimination. It's so very important that this needs to be addressed, and public attitudes needs to be improved. We need to empower people that they seek treatment, and we need to empower general publics so that people with epilepsy are not discriminated against. And this requires a movement, and you people from the civil society are the front runners for carrying out such a movement. Data is extremely important. We need to monitor, collect, report on the data, and use that data to improve our systems. And then the strategic approaches to research across the continuum. And some of this, it has to be implementation research. It's not only about finding new drugs, new treatments, but how do we deliver these interventions better? How do we deliver these interventions at scale? These are the questions that are extremely important. So that was my last slide. And then I would like to thank you once again for inviting WHO to make this presentation. But beyond that, I want to thank you for the collaboration that we have had between the World Health Organization and the International Bureau for Epilepsy and International League Against Epilepsy. And it is not only at the international level, it's actually at the national level. We want to further build up this collaboration and work together with you. So I look forward to hearing from you and look forward to working with you as we convert this resolution into an action plan and then into actual actions at ground level. So thanks, everyone.